The high-pitched wail of a newborn, raw and desperate, pierced the quiet of the clinic. Anna lay weak, her body still trembling from the effort. "It's a girl," Mama Rose said, her voice soft, placing the warm bundle in Anna's arms. Anna's eyes, heavy with exhaustion, struggled to focus. "My baby, my little girl." She tried to smile, but her heart pounded a frantic rhythm. The baby's face, so small, so innocent, turned aimlessly. Her tiny hands fluttered, searching. Mama Rose gently waved a hand in front of the child's eyes, then a heavy sigh. She cannot see," Mama Rose said, her voice barely a whisper. "Your daughter is blind, Anna." Anna's chest tightened, a cold wave washing over her. The room began to spin, the cries of her baby fading into a distant echo. Blind? No, it can't be outside at the reception. Friends and family waited, eager to hear the news. But Anna could already hear the whispers that would spread like wildfire. A cursed child, a bad omen. Who will marry a blind girl? She will bring suffering to her mother. Anna clenched her teeth, her body trembling with fear. The father of the baby had left them months ago. Now she was alone, and the world was about to turn its back on her. That night, as the baby cried softly beside her mother, Anna made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. It was a full moon, and everywhere was bright in the sky, as Anna walked through the lonely road heading to the state landfill. Her heart pounded with every step. The sound of crickets and distant howls filled the air, but she kept moving. In her arms, the tiny baby whimpered. Anna stopped near the site, looking around as if hoping someone would stop her, but no one was there, only the shadows of the night. Tears rolled down her face as she knelt and placed the baby on a soft patch of grass. "I'm sorry," she whispered, choking on her own words. I can't do this." She turned away, squeezing her eyes shut. The baby's cries grew louder. Anna's feet felt like stone, refusing to move. "Just walk away," she told herself. "Someone will find her. Someone will take care of her." But deep inside, she knew the truth. No one came this far. With one last look at her daughter, Anna ran. She ran without looking back. She ran, leaving behind the one soul that needed her the most. The baby's cries pierced through the silence of the street, echoing in the night. Somewhere nearby, a man on his truck driving back home from work, whose name was Dr. Ben, was on his way back from where he had treated sick children at an outreach for young children. He was tired, but the sound of a crying child stopped him in his tracks. He listened for a moment, then turned his truck toward the sound. As he reached a large waste bin, he spotted something on the ground, a tiny bundle wrapped in cloth. His heart clenched. He jumped off his truck and hurried forward. Gently, he picked up the baby, his experienced hands recognizing weakness and hunger. "Who would leave you here, little one?" he whispered, rocking her gently. The baby stopped crying for a moment, as if sensing kindness. Dr. Ben sighed deeply. He couldn't leave her here. He couldn't ignore the call of fate. Holding the baby close, he reached back to his car and rode into the night. Dr. Ben arrived home just before dawn. His wife, Sarah, sat by the outside door, waiting for him. The moment she saw the baby in his arms, her eyes widened. "Ben, whose child is this?" she asked, rushing toward him. He sighed, shaking his head. She was abandoned in the dumpster. Someone left her to die. Sarah gasped, placing a hand over her mouth. Dr. Ben gently placed the baby in Sarah's arms. "She needs us." Sarah looked down at the tiny face, her heart melting. "She's beautiful." Dr. Ben smiled. "I want to call her Lily, because despite everything, she has survived." Tears filled Sarah's eyes. "Lily Light," she whispered. "She will bring light into our lives." That night, Lily slept in a warm home surrounded by love. Years passed, and Lily grew up under the love and care of Dr. Ben and Sarah. Though she was blind, she never let it define her. She learned to use her hands to feel her world, her ears to hear what others ignored, and her heart to understand what sight could not show. "Lily," Sarah called one morning as the little girl played in the yard. Come inside, my dear. Lily turned her head toward the sound, smiling brightly. She had memorized every part of the house and walked confidently inside. You called, Mama? She asked, feeling for Sarah's hands. Sarah held her tiny fingers, squeezing them gently. I have something for you. She placed a small flute in Lily's hand. I want you to learn how to play this. Lily felt the smooth wood, curiosity lighting up her face. Music? Yes, Sarah said. Music can be seen with the heart, not just the eyes. That day, Lily sat outside, pressing the flute to her lips. At first, the sounds were not rhythmic and sharp, but as the days passed, she learned. Soon, the sweet sound of her flute floated through the air, touching the hearts of everyone who listened. One evening, as Dr. Ben watched Lily play, a thought crossed his mind he can see. He had treated many patients, but Lily's blindness was something he had never fully examined. That night, he spent hours reading old medical books, searching for answers. The next day, he took Lily to his clinic and conducted several tests. His hands shook as he went through the results. There is hope, he whispered. Lily's blindness wasn't permanent. A surgery could restore her sight, but the surgery was expensive. Still, Dr. Ben made a decision. No matter what, he would find a way to give Lily the gift of sight, even if it took everything he had. Dr. Ben sat in his clinic staring at the test results. His heart pounded with hope and fear. Lily's blindness was not a curse. It could be reversed with a delicate surgery, but the cost was high. He leaned back, rubbing his forehead. He had saved many lives in his years as a doctor, but this time it was different. This was his daughter, the little girl who had brought light into his life. Sarah walked in and saw the worry on his face. What is it, Ben? She asked. He looked at her and sighed. Lily can see again, Sarah, but the surgery is expensive. We will be needing 4 specialist doctors to undergo the surgery. We don't have that kind of money. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She sat beside him, gripping his hands. Then we will find a way. Lily deserves this chance. Dr. Ben nodded. I will see if I can sell my car since I have 3. If it takes me to borrow money and putting my hospital as collateral. Lily is my life. That night, Dr. Ben went out in search of funds. He asked for loans, spoke to friends, and even considered selling his home, but the money was still not enough. One day, he received an unexpected visitor, a wealthy man who he had once treated for stroke named Mr. Grant. I hear you need money, doctor, Mr. Grant said, leaning forward. How much? Dr. Ben hesitated before answering. Mr. Grant smiled. I owe you my life. I will pay for the surgery. Dr. Ben's eyes widened. You will? Yes. You saved me once. Let me do the same for your daughter. Tears rolled down Dr. Ben's face as he gripped Mr. Grant's hands. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hope had finally come. The hospital room was filled with tension. Lily lay on the bed, her tiny fingers gripping Sarah's hand. Mama, will it hurt? She asked softly. Sarah kissed her forehead. No, my love. You will sleep, and when you wake up, you will see the world. Lily's lips trembled. And I will see you. Sarah's heart clenched. Yes, my child. You will see me. Dr. Ben walked in, his face masked with confidence, though his heart pounded with fear. He knew the risks. Any mistake could change Lily's life, forever, but he had to try. The nurses wheeled Lily into the operating room. Dr. Ben followed, whispering a silent prayer. Hours passed. Sarah sat in the waiting area, gripping her rosary, her eyes red from crying. Finally, the doors opened. Dr. Ben stepped out, his face unreadable. Sarah rushed to him. Ben, tell me. He took a deep breath, then smiled. The surgery was successful. Sarah collapsed into his arms, sobbing with relief. 2 days later, it was time to remove Lily's bandages. Dr. Ben and Sarah stood by her bedside as Nurse Jane gently unwrapped the white cloth around her eyes. Lily blinked, her breathing quickened. Lily, can you see me? Dr. Ben asked, his voice shaking. Lily looked up, her dark brown eyes scanning the room slowly. A smile stretched across her lips. Mama, Papa, I see you. Sarah burst into tears, hugging her daughter tightly. Lily's eyes widened as she saw her reflection in the mirror for the first time. This is me, she whispered. Yes, my love, Sarah said, stroking her hair. This is you. Tears filled Lily's eyes. She turned to Dr. Ben and hugged him tightly. Thank you, Papa. For the first time in her life, she saw the man who had saved her, the man who had given her a second chance at life. And for the first time, Dr. Ben saw the eyes of the daughter he had chosen to love. Far away from the city, Anna sat outside her untidy apartment, staring at the sunset. Her hands rested on her stomach, empty, lifeless. For years, she had tried to have more children. She had visited every healer, every priest, every doctor, but nothing worked. Why, God, she whispered, why did you take my children from me? A deep voice behind her spoke. Maybe because you abandoned the one he gave you. Anna turned sharply. It was Mama Rose, the midwife. You think I don't know what you did? Mama Rose continued. You left that child to die, and now you cry for children. Anna trembled. I was scared. I was alone. You were selfish, Mama Rose spat, and now God has punished you. Anna burst into tears. She fell to her knees, gripping the earth. I want her back, even if in her condition. I will take her in as my child now, she sobbed. I need to find her. Mama Rose scoffed. It's been years. Do you even know she is? Anna looked up, determination flashing in her eyes. I will find her, even if it takes my whole life. Anna sold her belongings and left the village. She traveled from town to town, asking about a blind girl who was abandoned years ago. Most people laughed at her, others shook their heads in pity, but she kept searching. One day, in a busy market, she overheard a woman talking. Do you know the famous doctor who adopted a blind girl? Anna's heart pounded. She turned to the woman. Where? She asked desperately. Where is this doctor? The woman replied, in the city. His name is Dr. Ben. The girl is not blind anymore. She had surgery. Anna's knees went weak. Her daughter was alive, and she could see. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, Lily, my Lily. She arrived in the city, exhausted and hungry. She stood outside the clinic, her heart pounding, her legs aching from days of walking, but nothing mattered more than what lay ahead. She took a deep breath and stepped through the door. A young nurse at the front desk looked up. Good afternoon, ma'am. How can I help you? Anna swallowed hard, her throat dry. I need to see Dr. Ben. The nurse frowned. Do you have an appointment? Anna shook her head. Please, it's important. Tell him it's about his daughter. The nurse hesitated, then sighed. Wait here. Anna stood still, gripping the edge of her wrapper. She had rehearsed this moment in her head over and over. She would kneel, beg, cry if she had to. She had made a terrible mistake years ago, but she was here now. She was ready to make it right. Minutes later, the door opened and a tall, well-dressed man stepped out. His face was serious, his eyes sharp and full of wisdom. Doctor! Ben? Anna's heart clenched as she looked at the man who had raised her child. You are the woman who wanted to see me, he asked, his voice calm but firm. Anna nodded quickly. Yes, doctor. Please, we need to talk. Dr. Ben folded his arms. Make it quick. I have patients to attend to. Anna's lips trembled. She fell to her knees. Please, doctor. I am here for my daughter. Dr. Ben's expression didn't change. Your daughter? Anna wiped her tears. Lily. She is my child. I am her mother. For a moment there was silence. Then Dr. Ben threw back his head and laughed. Anna froze. It was not the reaction she expected. His laughter was bitter, mocking, and filled with disbelief. You must be a foolish woman, he said, his voice turning cold. You abandoned a helpless baby in the dump site like an animal, and now you think you can walk in here and claim my beautiful daughter. Anna's face crumpled with shame. Doctor, I was young. I was scared. I made a mistake. Dr. Ben's eyes darkened. A mistake? You left her to die, and now that she has grown into a strong, intelligent, and wonderful young woman, you suddenly remember you're her mother. Anna wept. Please, doctor, let me see her. Let me tell her the truth. I want to take her home. Dr. Ben's hands clenched into fists. You must be crazy. His voice was sharp like a knife. Lily is already home. She has a family, a mother and a father who love her. She doesn't know you, and she doesn't need you. Anna sobbed. She deserves to know who I am. Dr. Ben took a step closer, his face filled with anger. If you ever come near my daughter again, I will call the police. Now get out. Anna's heart shattered. She opened her mouth to plead again, but Dr. Ben pointed at the door. Out, he thundered. Tears poured down her face as she staggered to her feet and stumbled toward the door. Before stepping out, she turned to look at him one last time. Doctor, one day she will know the truth, and when she does, I pray she forgives me. Dr. Ben didn't answer. He just watched her leave, his heart burning with anger. As Anna disappeared into the street, he exhaled deeply. He had protected Lily all these years, and he was not about to let the woman who abandoned her destroy her life again. Dr. Ben walked into his home, his face tight with anger. He dropped his bag on the chair and sighed heavily. Sarah, who was setting the table for dinner, immediately noticed his troubled expression. Ben, she called softly, walking towards him. What's wrong? He sat down, rubbing his forehead. She came. Sarah frowned. Who? Dr. Ben lifted his head, his jaw clenched. Lily's biological mother, the woman who abandoned her at the landfill. Sarah's hands trembled. She sat down beside him, her heart pounding. Oh, Ben. I knew this day would come. Dr. Ben scoffed. The audacity. She fell on her knees begging me to let her take Lily back. Sarah gasped, gripping her husband's hand. Take Lily? No. She's our daughter, Ben. She brought so much joy into my life. I can't lose her. Dr. Ben turned to her, his eyes softening. He placed his hands over hers. Don't worry, Sarah. We won't lose her. I will never let that woman take Lily away from us. Sarah sighed, tears welling in her eyes. But what if one day Lily wants to know her? What if she asks questions? Dr. Ben shook his head. We raised her with love. She will understand that we are her real family. Unknown to them, Lily was standing by the staircase, hidden behind the wall. She had been on her way downstairs when she heard her parents speaking. At first she was confused, but as she listened, her entire world shattered. Her breath hitched. She covered her mouth with her hands to stop a sob from escaping. She wasn't their real daughter. She wasn't their flesh and blood. She had been abandoned. Tears streamed down her face as she backed away, her heart breaking into pieces. Her whole life had been a lie. Lily locked herself in her room, her body shaking with silent sobs. The memories of her childhood flashed through her mind. The warm hugs from Mama, the bedtime stories from Papa, the way they always made her feel special. But now she felt like a stranger in her own home. Her mind raced with questions. Who is my real mother? Why did she abandon me? Why didn't Papa and Mama tell me the truth? She pressed her pillow against her face and cried harder. The pain was unbearable. The parents she had loved all her life weren't really hers. She wasn't Lily Light. She was a child that had been thrown away like garbage. The night dragged on, and Lily lay awake staring at the ceiling. A storm raged in her heart. She loved Doctor, Ben and Sarah. But now she didn't know who she was anymore.